Well, hello and howdy. We're back at it again. Scotty and myself, Scotty and CC, Scotty Too Hottie over there, Scott McDonald from Colorado Hockey Now, and I'm CC Hawkley, AHL editor of Full Press Hockey. And Scott, my man, it's been a few weeks. We were trying to get out some season previews for the Calder Farmstead. 31 teams, 31 season previews. By God, we did it before each and every team started the AHL season. It was 4 episodes in 2 days. That was a bit of a go. So, but we're on the other side of it, and here we are, episode 28 of Front Range Hockey. And enough about me and my busyness. How are you?
I was gonna say, I mean, that's only he's only telling you that, not even half of the story. Like it's been a hell of a month for CC Hawkley over here. I mean, between really missing flights thanks to Southwest and a nightmare trying to get back from DC while on vacation to COVID, and he's been under the weather and cranking out a lot of content and podcasts. So yeah, props to you. I feel like I'm pretty lazy in comparison, but other than that, I feel like I'm feeling pretty good, doing well. Glad the season's back underway, and we're 6 games in now to the NHL season and something like that with the AHL too. So we're starting to get back into the swing of things. I'm getting my fingers back under me and my warming up the vocal cords for these podcasts. So feeling good, ready to rock. It has been a few weeks, but like we were saying before, we tagged up before this podcast recording. I was like, we'll see how it goes. I don't know. I feel like I'm always a little bit rusty right off the bat, but we're gonna see what flies out of my tongue.
Honestly, I mean, Scott, you and I, we talked before the show. We always have kind of this buffer period before we dive into it where we kind of let the people know, hey, how are you doing? What's up? How am I doing? And I mean, like you said, it's been a month. October has been, trying to get home from Washington, D.C., flight out of D.C. canceled, flight out of Baltimore canceled. Had to book a ticket on Frontier Airlines and just get the hell back home.
Right. It's like go fly Spirit at that rate. I don't care. Just get me home.
Hey, I let's not get carried away.
Yeah, okay, that was aggressive.
Spirit's like a little
Frontier is where I draw the line. Honestly, I'm probably a frequent flyer, like my cheap ass, like frequent flyer of Frontier Airlines. It's like,
you're a young man.
If I'm on United or something, it's like, wow, this is high class. Like this is luxurious. But
that was us on Delta when we flew to Fargo to visit my mom a few months ago. That was like, oh, this is not. Oh, you got TVs in the seats?
Yeah.
Really?
I don't have to pay for the water. This is this is great.
It was amazing, right? Yeah. But yeah, it's been a hell of a month, but we're here, and we're both healthy now. I'm on the other side of COVID. I got a positive test not this past Tuesday, but the Tuesday before. Feeling much better, and I'm ready to rock. I'm ready to roll. So. And Scott, you're a young single guy. So, I mean, Frontier, just milk that because,
keep it cheap, It's like, why spend money when you don't have to,
You don't need to. Yeah. I mean, anyway, enough about extolling the values of discount airlines. Let's talk Colorado hockey. And first things first, the Colorado Avalanche played the Vegas Golden Knights last night, Tuesday, October 26th. It is Wednesday, October 27th, 2021. And, they lost the game 3-1, and we'll get into how the Avs have kind of stumbled out of the gate. But first, I wanted to talk about a couple of hits. And I named this episode What Hits? Kind of in reference to the Red Hot Chili Peppers' first greatest hits compilation, because who doesn't love some Chili Peppers? But no, what hits? Like, you have Steven Stamkos boarding Sam Girard and putting him out of action for who knows how long when the Avs defeated the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then you had Jack Johnson and his hit on Keegan Colasar. And as he's skating backwards, he hit Colasar. And it was a little high. I will admit that, but I do not think that it deserved a 5-minute major penalty. And of course, Twitter is abuzz. Social media is blowing up, has blown up the past few days about these two hits. So, Scott, covering the Avalanche, your unbiased journalistic take on the Sammy G and Jack Johnson banana pancakes hit.
Yeah, that is Yeah, the hot topic of conversation these days, and we can go back to even, I guess, what was it, like the first game of the season. It feels like a lifetime ago, but the the Landeskog 2-game suspension for his
Right.
boarding hit, which I will say, I mean, yes, okay, I see that one. The guy's down on his knees. It was an unnecessary hit. They were up, they're going to win the game. The Avalanche were. There was really no need for that, and you can kind of just see that Landeskog was trying to make a statement on that one, and just kind of had a full head of steam, just hitting everybody, on that last shift that he had there. And I'm not upset about that 2-game suspension. I think he did deserve that one. But that only kind of just sets the precedent, I guess, for the rest of the season. And then now we enter the discussion with the Stamkos hit and how that wasn't a suspension on Sam Girard, and then obviously the Jack Johnson hit on Keegan Colasar. Yeah, it's like I don't like to play the the persecution complex card, and everyone the woe is me, and like the reffing is so unfair, and the Department of Player Safety, like this and that. I get it. I think that's an easy way out, and it's an easy way to kind of blame or attribute failures of the Avalanche, like you said, stumbling out of the gate so far, to the inequity of some of those things. But with those 2 hits, I think in particular the Stamkos one, it's inexcusable, and he did the same thing like the next game, like when I forgot who Tampa was playing on Monday or Tuesday or last. I don't even know when it was, but right after the Sam Girard hit, the next game he kind of hits someone up high too. Same thing, like no penalty, and the Tampa Bay Lightning are the golden children of the NHL right now, repeat champions, and you could say what you want about that. He's the captain of the team, and whatever, but. I think it absolutely should have been suspension, and Sam Girard's about to miss his 2nd game. He's not going to play in St. Louis tomorrow on Thursday.
Mhm.
So, the fact that there was like an injury, there's some soreness there. We don't think it's going to be long term, but still, I mean, it definitely warranted a peek or a second look from the Department of Player Safety. And there obviously wasn't even a call made or any inquiry to the Stamkos party at all. And then, of course, last night with the Keegan Colasar thing, I think that was an absolute joke. Like 20 minutes of penalties doled out, game misconduct, 5-minute major, for a hit that was to the chest. Like, yes, you can consider that up high, but all the angles it shows, like there was no head contact. He got him in the chest. It was a clean hit. The puck was in his general vicinity. I don't think Colasar touched it, but I think it was close enough where he was already kind of lining up for that hit, expected him to get the puck. That's a play that most players would make right there. So I'm kind of with all the upset Avalanche fans who feel persecuted about that one. It doesn't make sense to me. There's obviously no suspension or anything, but it still took out a defenseman, and a pretty good defenseman. Jack Johnson's been a bit of a revelation here to start this, the first 6 games of the year. He's been a decent defenseman, and to lose him for a healthy majority of the game obviously hurt the team, and I'd be pissed off too. And I'm a little bit upset at the lack of response from Coach Bednar. I saw like a lot of people like John Michael Lyles on Twitter, and a bunch of verified accounts on Twitter that like I hope in his post game press conference that Coach Bednar gets upset. I hope he takes the fine and like lays into the league and kind of talk about that. But of course he just shied away. And then Landeskog was asked the question after the game too, and then asked the reporter, he's like, I don't know, what do you think of the hit? And asked him that, and he's like, I can't really say much because like I'll get in trouble. Essentially, is like what he said. But he's like, yeah, I don't think it deserved a 5-minute major. It looked like a clean hit to me. Whatever. So yeah, I mean it's a little unfair. I get it. But that's the parity in reffing, like it may feel like, again, going back to that word, the persecution complex, like it may feel like, everything's going against the Avalanche, but, the other 31 teams in the NHL feel the exact same way. So it has been a tough start to the year, as far as reffing. And obviously, there's been some COVID cases with Jack Johnson and Nathan McKinnon and a couple suspensions, and, they haven't had a healthy roster yet.
Right.
And I think that explains how they've kind of stumbled out of the gate a little bit. I don't think, the reffing has really lost them a game by any means. So I don't think it's fair to, attribute that to it.
No.
But yes, to comment on it, does it make me upset? Sure, a little bit. I'm, as upset as every other Avalanche fan. I think Stamkos should have received some disciplinary action, especially considering, Stamkos or, Girard is injured. But, there really is not much to say. On to the next one, and, hopefully they get a more fairly reffed game than they did the last couple of games. But that's all you can really say.
Yeah, and I mean, the consistency, I think, is what fans have always
Right.
wanted. When you decry a hit, and like you said, you compared the Landeskog hit, 2 games. I agree with you there. It was well deserved. But the fact is, when you have these other hits, these other, suspendable, in my opinion, hits, and then you have a hit from, you know, Jack Johnson that gets a 5-minute major. It's like there's just such a lack of consistency, and I understand that that's the human element of the game. I understand that's what you get when you get a human being calling a such a fast-paced game, so much faster than it was, 15, 20 years ago. And when it's so bang bang like that, I mean, the Jack Johnson hit, for example, the puck was skirting by pretty quick. It was in the general vicinity of Keegan Kolesar. And so, looking back on it, and they did look back on it, and they still gave him the 5-minute major, which
Right.
a bit of a head scratcher there.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it's like consistency is key in any aspect in life. And granted, sometimes it doesn't come, but when you are refereeing, when you are wearing the stripes at the highest level of the game, then there needs to be some consistency, in my opinion. I think you've been doing it long enough to know and to feel the gameplay. And you've got three other of your buddies on the ice. You've got 4 on ice officials. I don't know. I just
Yeah.
I just wish consistency would be a little more
Yeah,
pertinent
and
here.
so me and my roommate were actually talking about this last night. We were watching the rest of the game 1 of the World Series, and he's a big baseball guy, so like he's super into that. Used to play, growing up, and I had kind of asked that question. I was like, umpires, like they have a really hard job because like there
Mhm.
really is like what they're calling is like that a strike box, right? Like, and it's the ball's moving so fast, and if you turn your head one way, it looks like it's in the strike zone. You turn your head, a degree the other way, whatever. There is a lot of disparity that could happen there, and it's tough, and it's tough you can't really have like a replay on that either. And it's an imaginary box that you're just drawing in your head about where a strike zone is and whatever. And we were kind of like added that to or started the conversation about like the Avalanche, and he was watching the Avalanche game last night too and saw that Jack Johnson hit. And that's kind of what sparked the conversation. We were just talking about the disparity and refereeing and how hard of a job it really is. And then like
Mhm.
it's easy to get upset. Like of course it's the easy thing to do, but I mean these guys have a really tough job, and the game is moving so fast. And the thing that I guess makes me so upset, and like where baseball doesn't really have replays except for if they're sliding home or whatever, like getting on base, they have those replays. But the NHL, like it literally showed during the ESPN broadcast, like the Toronto NHL headquarters, like the replay headquarters, and it showed a bunch of people like pointing at different camera angles of the Jack Johnson hit. And the fact that they still, after all of whatever 20 angles they have of it, it was pretty plainly obvious to, I'm sure everyone at Ball Arena and everyone watching on TV, and all the replays that we had available to us, like it was not like, that's a 2-minute interference call. Like there's almost never a major interference penalty. Those are like almost like called once a year, twice a season, whatever. So that was puzzling. And yeah, the fact that they reviewed that for so long and then still deemed it necessary to give him a 5-minute time penalty and kick him out of the game was puzzling. So I get it. Like I like to lean, more towards the refs in these situations because again, it is such a tough job, whether it's baseball or hockey or NFL. Like they're humans just like us. They have human error. That's just part of the game. But the
Right.
fact that you have 100 different replay angles and you still called it, that was a head scratcher to me. And it's rare that happens, but again, it's one of those things like we just gotta, it's on to the next one, like it sucks and it's gonna happen, but try getting off of Avs Twitter. I'm sure a lot of people that are getting upset on Twitter are the ones that are just following Avs fans, and it's one of those things where it's confirmation bias. Like you're seeing people that have the same opinions as you, people that are seeing the same Twitter, like the angles and replays and all that kind of stuff on Twitter. But every other team has this issue too. Go on Stars Twitter, Columbus Blue Jackets Twitter, whatever happened during that game. they're going to think, the refs weren't fair because they called hooking or something, in overtime, and it ruined the game for them. So, it's again, it's easy to feel like, it ruined the game and the night, and then, the persecution complex thing that I keep mentioning. But, all 31 other teams are going through this too. And it's not a big deal. That's not the reason the Avalanche lost. And I think we can kind of, move on.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of moving on, that's a good transition point right there. Let's talk more about the Avalanche being 2-4. Like, let's break that down a little bit. I mean, like you mentioned, Nate McKinnon getting COVID-19. He's out a couple games to start the year. Gabe Landeskog, of course, with the suspension with the 2 games that we mentioned earlier as well. But yeah, I mean, Francouz, he's hurt again. And, I know that they were going to go with Kemper. But I mean, you look at I'm looking here at Cap Friendly and just seeing there has been 5 different forwards called up from the Colorado Eagles so far this year. And, when your forward core is in that much disarray, and yeah, like you mentioned, Jack Johnson on the COVID-19 list. I mean, not surprisingly been very productive for the Avalanche so far this year, but not a key cog in the machine, as it were, not as your McKinnons or your Rantanens or your Landeskog's per se, but yeah, I mean, you put out an article today, and I don't want you to give it all away for free, obviously, on here, but
it actually is a free one that I posted.
Oh, it is
today,
a free one. Yeah. Okay.
Most of the columns I write are so.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, I guess you can give it away for free then. But yeah, I mean, losing 4 out of their 5 games after winning that I was going to say the home opener against Chicago, but I had to stop myself because I can't remember if it was at home or in Chicago. Do you remember
the home It was home.
It was at home. Okay.
First game of the year. Yeah.
Yes. First game of the year. Okay. I thought it was, but then I thought it wasn't. I'm moving on. But anyway, they take the first game against Chicago. Like I said earlier as well, Tampa Bay, big victory against the defending Stanley Cup champions, but the rest have been losses. Like I said, 2-4-0. Scott, I mean, it's a macro picture, but give me some micro observations as to why the Avalanche have stumbled a little bit out of the gate, and should it be a cause for concern?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it's one of those things where it's so easy to blame the injuries, and like, of course, I mean, this happens every year for the Avalanche, it seems, and you're down your backup goalie already. Like one of the first games of the year, he's out for a few weeks. You're not starting the year with your top pairing defenseman. Devon Taves is still out. He's taking contact in practice, so hopefully he's going to be back, and I think that's going to really help the defense, because the defense has been, in my mind, probably the biggest issue. It's not just the 6 people on the back end on defense. It's team defense as a whole. Like, the Avalanche used to be or were last season, one of the best teams at shot suppression, and offense is forechecking, and it seemed like every line was like a 4th line in a way. Like, they're grinding, but also like they could contribute offensively as well. Like, even the first line is tracking back, and it was great. Like, teams were registering like 15, 16 shots on goal, like, each game on average, which is incredible. Like, to ask your goalie to save 15 shots a game is like, easy money. You're going to win most of those games. But yeah, I'm just seeing a lot of the skating doesn't seem to be there. I think the jumbling of the lineup obviously doesn't help, at all with, some of these guys being out with suspension or COVID, and having to kind of rearrange things, and, the Bednar blender or whatever, like it has to be done. So I think that certainly doesn't help, but to me, I think the most worrisome thing, and it's the thing I touched on in the column that you're referring to that I wrote this morning, was, just like the lack of like effort. I'm not seeing, even from the top line, like, I don't like McKinnon even. It's like, I'm not really seeing him. Like, I'm seeing a lot of, throwing his arms up in the air when, like, a pass doesn't go his way or something like that, or, not skating back. And I think that's the most disappointing thing, so far. But it's really nothing like new. And that's another point I try to make. It's like the Avalanche started 2-3-1, last year. So, call it 2-4, the same record they have now, 1 point better, I guess. And they finished with, the best regular season record in the President's Trophy in their hands. So, it's way too early. There's 76 more games to go. But again, it's like, is the writing on the wall a little bit? Maybe. Like, this team is obviously not as deep as they were last season. Last season's team was the team. We knew the Avalanche were gonna have to get younger this year. There was, less cap space, a lot of guys to re-sign, a lot of big names to re-sign. So they had to get young and they had to get cheap. So, we kind of saw this coming, but for the most part, the top two lines are still intact, and the offensive core is there. I think the fourth line is honestly better, than it was last year. Logan O'Connor, is leading the charge. I'm glad he's getting all the recognition he deserves, and he actually practiced the second line today, so he's getting a little promotion, and that's great to see. But I think the pieces are there, just like the effort isn't quite there, and I'm seeing a lot of slumped shoulders and a lot of feeling sorry for themselves from what I see, just in like the effort department.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's something, again. I feel like this happens at a training camp for a lot of teams. Either they explode out of the gate, like the surprise teams, like for some reason the Buffalo Sabres, and like all those guys are like undefeated or whatever, and it's like it's not going to last. Like these things tend to trend different directions, and there's 76 more games to go. The Avalanche will certainly, light it up in December, January, February, like they always do, when they're really hitting it like full swing. So I'm not like too worried, but the point I try to make in the column is like, it's innate for humans to like pick up on trends and patterns, and the other point I'm trying to make is like there's not as much, like 76 games is a lot of time, but there's really not that much time if like things trend in different directions for too long. And like Bednar touched on it, and that was kind of my jumping off point in the column, was like, they're only 2 games behind 500 right now, but that's like, they're like 6 points away from the top seed in their division, the Central Division. But if they trend for even like a week, the Avs lose 2 more in a row, and like someone else wins 2 more in a row, now all of a sudden, you're 4 games behind, and that might take you, what Bednar said is like it might take you a week, like 10 days, it could take a month to like fight back for that. So you'd think about it, like every game they're falling back and like another team is getting ahead of them, like that's just another few days that they're behind. It's like all of a sudden, the Avs start 2-6 or 2-8 or 3-7 or something like that. It's like that might take 3 months to like battle back to that, and get back to being 500 and like get back to being in the playoff picture. Then all of a sudden it's December, January. It's like, well, shit, the season's half over, and we're playing pretty average. So what I see right now is, are they going to miss the playoffs? I'm not worried about that, but I see a team that's just barely above average right now, and I think they're a much better team than that. And it's just it's the effort, and the team defense is slacking. I think those are on a micro level, that's what I'm seeing, at least in the first 6 games.
Well, sure, and to have Taves out, I mean, that's your one of your top guys. I mean, and that in my opinion, to have a top pairing defenseman out, it wreaks so much more havoc on the chemistry of the team, because you have those top pairing defensemen for a reason, is because they're your number one pair. And so to have, and it's been Taves and Makar, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the pairing that they've been going with.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, to have a Taves Makar pairing not available thus far this season, I mean, you shuffle guys up and you have guys play up where they're probably, either not comfortable or not used to. And it's different when you lose a second or a third pairing guy. I know that's kind of a well-done statement, but to have one of your top guys and to really throw the chemistry out of whack, I mean, it makes sense that the defense is not up to snuff and up to par thus far this season.
Yeah. And I will say, like, I know I was big on Curtis McDermott, at the beginning of the year, and I really liked the feistiness that he could bring to the lineup, because if you're a follower of this podcast or my Twitter, like that's my biggest thing is like what I think to make that next step for the Avalanche, I think they're missing that physicality, and I thought Curtis McDermott is like he's going to be a great guy. Like he's not a flashy name, he's not exciting, but he's cheap and affordable, and like he can kick ass, and like that's. I think that's what they need on their fourth line, or like, as a seventh defenseman. But yikes. I mean, he has not been good at all. Like you can almost directly blame, like, at least, the Avs have let in like 20 some goals. Like, 4 of them have been just like directly, Curtis McDermott, and he's playing, 10 to 15 minutes less than like his other defensive counterparts. Like at that point, like 7 minutes a game, it's like, why is he even in the lineup? And yeah, same thing with like Ryan Murray. I've not been very impressed with him at all. Looks like a traffic cone out there. So like those two just like have been, kind of paired together in a few games, and it's like they've been an absolute, liability defense. So yeah, I'm sure, like you said, they're praying for Devon Taves to come back healthy as soon as possible. I think that'll, certainly help things, quite a bit on the back end, because that's, that's how you win championships, as they say. It's like those 6 guys in the back and like your goalie are going to be the ones that, really scratch and claw their way to a Stanley Cup final. And it's been rough. So I'm ready to give up on that Curtis McDermott, experiment. And I know a lot of, Avs fans are. They love talking about that on Twitter. And I think even like Emily Kaplan. So if you watched like the ESPN broadcast last night, she was between the benches and she was narrating, some of the chirps back and forth. And I thought that was, a great addition to the broadcast. I love that. I think a lot of fans and, media, like, yeah, we get to go to the locker room and stuff and like, talk to these players, but we don't get to like hear that, like the on ice, chatter, which is something that would always love to hear. So I'm glad she talked about that. I guess, one of the ones that she was saying is like, I guess a Vegas player is like, yeah, you have Curtis McDermott on your team and you have to watch him play every night. Like, how's that? Like, something along those lines. I was like, oh Jesus. Like, it's like, they're even making fun of him. And like, he's just, he looks like he doesn't belong out there. And, he's getting picked apart. So hasn't helped. And, Bednar said, like, he was asked a question about it in the press conference after the game. He's like, why are we playing, Curtis McDermott 7 minutes a night? Like, what is that doing for you? And he's like, well, what do you want? Like, what do you want me to do? Like, that's the best we have. And it's like, well, I had an issue with that statement that he made there. I was like, I mean, that's not, that's certainly not the best you have. Like, a lot of people are already, again, we're 6 games in and like, they're on the fire Bednar train. And so I think a lot of people, saw that comment, didn't like it. And I'm a big, proponent of Jared Bednar, big fan of his. I like the work he's done. I don't believe he, deserves to be fired. But that was, a comment that I didn't like at all. Like, in the last few years that, I was like, what do you like, kind of gave attitude. He's like, what do you want me to do? This is the best, like, I have to work with. It's like, I mean, Jacob McDonald, I would much rather have him in the lineup.
He got called up yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah. And they sat him like they put in McDermott, and instead, which I guess I get, like, he probably, didn't have much time to practice with the team or whatever, but I guarantee you a cold Jacob McDonald will be better than a warm Curtis McDermott. And yeah, I mean, even try like Justin Barron, like, he's a guy that really impressed me in camp and like preseason. And I know he's super young, but like, again, I think there's a lot of options out there that are, much, much better than Curtis McDermott right now. And like, the fact that he's played like 3 or 4 games now just doesn't make any sense to me at all. So I did have issues with that comment that he made. And, with the fact that we keep playing Curtis McDermott and he's like, yeah, I saw some good things last night from him. It's like, I don't know
what you saw.
Like, it's like, I didn't see much, but I mean, he's the pro. So like, I'm not going to, comment much further, but yeah, defense needs help. And I think it starts with, getting Devon Taves back, getting that top pair, Cale Makar and Taves, back where they belong. And then, maybe Sam Girard, Eric Johnson, and then, maybe stick Ryan Murray with somebody that's, a little bit better. Maybe a Bo Byram. Like, Byram has been playing so incredibly well, like, over the last, first 6 games. I've been very impressed with him. Took a huge step from, last season, which, he didn't play much time, but definitely played some minutes and then, missed a lot of it. So I thought he was going to start out a lot slower, but he's been, super impressive. And, maybe he can, spark something out of, a Ryan Murray or anyone else. So I think there's a lot more that they can do on the defense. And the fact that, Bednar said it's the best we have to work with is laughable to me.
Avalanche play the St. Louis Blues, the undefeated St. Louis Blues, tomorrow night, Thursday, October 28th. So that's their next game. And the next game for the Colorado Eagles, another transition. Let's talk Colorado Eagles. They are playing the Bakersfield Condors later tonight. And let me look at my Peanuts calendar real quick. It's 6:30 Pacific, so 7:30 Mountain. So that's who they're playing tonight. Eagles winless, 0-3-0-1 in their first 4 games. And Scott, you put out an article chronicling the Avalanche's rough start. I put out an article chronicling the Colorado Eagles' rough start. And yeah, it's a combination of things. Of course, it's never just one thing. They lost close games. 3 out of their 4 games have been 1-goal affairs. And they've lost them late. And unfortunately, they've had either a goal lead in 2 of the games that they were playing in, heading into the third period, and then they blew it. Or they've been tied. They were tied in one game heading into the third period, and they blew it, unfortunately. So, killer instinct. It's something that I've been critical about with the Eagles last season, and I'm going to be critical about it again this season because I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the killer instinct to close out games and to really lock down that defense. You talk about Justin Barron and being that one of the top pairing guys in Loveland. That's another thing. That's another problem is that 4 of the defensemen coming in to replace guys like, a Dan Renouf and to replace guys like, oh goodness. See, I'm failing, but I can't remember.
We're just throwing so many names out there. It's like I couldn't even tell you like who was on the Eagles roster like last year. Just a lot of turnover. And
Ian Scheid heading over to Germany to play this season. Top scoring defenseman last year for the Eagles. So you have an offensive defenseman leaving. You have a Dan Renouf. You got all these. 4 of your 6 starting defensemen last year have hit the road, and so you bring in Rob Hamilton from the Stockton Heat. You bring in Roland McCune, who played in Europe last season, so he's got to reacclimate to the North American game. And you bring in a couple other defensemen. Andreas.
Wingerly?
Oh goodness. No, he's a winger.
He's a winger. Yeah.
You know what? I'm just gonna pull up my article because I'm spacing on these defensemen. But the point is, you have 4 of these brand new defensemen to the team that are coming in, and they're trying to gain their footing in one way or another. One guy didn't even play last year. He did not play professional hockey at all last year, and so they bring him on the team to try and reacquaint him with the professional game, especially at the AHL level. It's just it's a bit of a frustrating thing. And of course you've got McDonald, you've got Justin Barron, but you've got your second and third pairing guys that are trying to find their footing. And yeah, you've got Keaton Middleton as well coming back from last season, but he's not super. I've never been uber impressed with Keaton Middleton. England. Thank you, Marie. Marie Sexton coming in for the win. Andreas England. Thank you, Marie. That's Colorado hockey media helping each other out. Marie Sexton from the rink, Colorado. Thank you so much, Marie. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I was trying to load this article and be like, oh, who the hell is it? But yes, it was England. England did not play last season at all. So you got your defense and you've got Justus Annunen. Riding the struggle bus early this season. And he has yet to find the win column. He played a couple games last season. He's played a few games. He started 3 games of 4 games this season, but he has not seen a victory at the AHL level quite yet. So yeah, just a number of different factors, playing into the Eagles losing 2 against Henderson and then losing 2 at home against the San Jose Barracuda. And again, they're playing on the road, Bakersfield tonight, but they also play against San Jose. They're doing a little Bay Area trip, or at least somewhat of a Northern California trip, Bakersfield, San Jose, and then Stockton on Saturday night. So little 3 games in 4 days against the California teams there. But yeah, I mean, Scott, have you had any chance to look at any Eagles games, or at least catch any footage of, Annunen or anything like that?
Yeah, not too much, to be honest with you, but just from reading between the lines, like the stat lines, it's been tough. Like power play looks great, penalty kill, which is normally a strong suit of theirs, has struggled out of the gate a little bit, and again, it's one of those things like I don't worry too much about. Like we were just talking about, like the Avalanche. We're 6 games in, there's no need to like panic. Kind of the same thing with the Eagles. Like you can expect a slow start. There's a lot of turnover, between last season's roster and this season's, and it's to be expected. Like you said, like there's 4 or 5 different call ups like so far, and it's always tough to manage an AHL hockey team and try to win games. Like at the end of the day, it's like winning's great, but that comes secondarily to developing prospects, and that's that's what their job is. Like if you ask Greg Cronin, like that's what he'll tell you. That's what he's told me, and that's just kind of the unfortunate reality of it. So as long as the big guns are getting the playing time, like the first round picks, the Alex Newhooks, the Justin Barons, all those guys are getting their ice time. That's what it's about, and the Avalanche will continue plucking what they need as they see fit. So it's tough, but I'm not too worried about it. I think this is a pretty strong Eagles roster, or at least should be.
Right.
And I think it's just, a matter of them struggling out of the gate. And I expect that to, to turn around pretty shortly. Hopefully, like you said, 3 games in 4 days, like, get 2 of those and we're feeling better about ourselves.
Exactly. And it's not for lack of the offensive output. 44.25 shots on goal per game is what the Eagles are averaging. That is number 1 in the AHL. But then you have a top stat like that, and then you've got your, like you mentioned, the penalty kill, and new assistant coach Tim Branham coming in over from the Utah Grizzlies after 8 seasons head coaching in Utah in the ECHL. A very abrupt departure from Brett Clark, who was a major part of the penalty kill being good last year and recovering from a really poor start. And it was a sprint. It wasn't a marathon last season. So to bring in Brett Clark and to rehab that penalty kill and then to start from square one, unfortunately, in the offseason, the Eagles are dead last in the AHL on the penalty kill. 62.5% kill rate, 6 power play goals allowed on 16 chances. Woof. Oh, that's a rough stat. But, the offense, 3.75 goals per game average, they're contributing. And, it's again, it's not just on the ice, it's behind the bench as well. So, I mean, Cronin getting that 3-year extension in the offseason, but Brett Clark, he did not comply with COVID-19 protocols. And so he was let go. And so, you bring in Branham, and there's going to be a learning curve from the ECHL to the AHL level. And you're not coaching a whole team anymore. You're coaching, special teams, you're coaching penalty kill. And so that's a huge thing as well. But the Eagles, it's definitely nothing to be overly concerned about. Again, my major thing is that killer instinct and to really be patient with those blue liners, because the fact that Kyle Burrows, Dan Renouf, Ian Scheid, Connor Timmins. Why did I forget Connor Timmins? Probably because he's playing at the NHL level now. He's starting for Arizona. So, but you bring in Jordan Gross, he played a few games with Arizona, mainly a taxi squad guy last year with the Coyotes. And then Andreas England didn't play last year. Rob Hamilton, looking for a rehab season after he was just kind of a replacement level D-man at the AHL level last year. And Roland McCune coming over from the SHL over there in Sweden. You're trying to adjust so many things coming into this season. And like you said, if the Eagles take 2 out of 3 on this California road trip, it would be, it's amazing what winning does. It cures a lot of ails. Cures a lot of ailments.
Takes. Like, win one, start with 1, then, get 2 in a row. And then, the confidence just like, it starts trending upwards, and you can't lose when you're a confident team. That's that's what the Avalanche are so good at. Like, yes, they're a talented team, but when they rattle off like 8 wins in a row, it's like, we can go at anyone's like house and like beat them. And it's the same thing at the AHL. That's just how the the human mindset works. And especially in sports and in hockey, like when you could like start rolling them, putting them together, then you're a tough team to beat. So. Again, I think we can expect this. It's like the same thing with the Avalanche and the Eagles. A lot of turnover on both rosters. It's going to be slow out of the gate. You can't learn everything in training camp. You almost never do. It's only to get your legs back under you, but to actually be game actions when you you really start learning things. And there was a lot of turnover on the Eagles roster and a lot of inexperience on the defensive end. Like you said, I mean, it sounds like the offense is doing pretty well, but defense kind of needs to pick it up a little bit, and I'm sure they will. Like, I'm not too worried about that at all, but you just got to give it some time. And, the hope is like after a slow start, like, the point I was trying to make in my column with the Avalanche is like, it doesn't take too much time, because then you're fighting, you keep digging yourself a hole, and it's going to be even harder to climb out, especially when teams ahead of you are, still winning. So hopefully they snap out of it, and I fully trust they will.
It reminds me a little bit of the 1920 season. And, kind of a shaky start for the Eagles, but coming into February, coming into March, and they start to string together these wins. They start to rely on these depth guys from Utah, the Griffin Molinos, the Ryan Wagners, and to bring those guys up and to have Wags just just completely like show out in those last few games, and especially against the number one team in the AHL at the time, the Milwaukee Admirals. To take a game against the Admirals and to really have that confidence boost. I mean, yeah, to go against Bakersfield and San Jose and Stockton. I mean, Stockton's had a hot start out of the gate too. So if they can take one of those two against San Jose or Bakersfield before they head to Stockton on Saturday night, I think that'll be a huge confidence boost and really give them the chance to compete with the Heat.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, sorry to Dr. Susie a little bit there with my rhyming, but
want more
hey,
of that.
compete with okay. You've got the puns, now you'll get the rhyming.
All right.
Maybe you'll get a little bit of freestyle rapping if you play your cards right. I kid, but I don't know about that one. Yeah. Scott says, but so that's the Eagles. Like I said, they've got a game tonight at 6:30 Pacific, 7:30 Mountain against the Condors. So their first game against Bakersfield this season. And I still need to get to an Eagles game myself. Again, I was down and out.
Planning on going, right? Yeah. And then
I was. I emailed Kevin. I said, "Hey, can I get a pass?" And then I had to email him again and say, "Hey, I got COVID-19, so
sorry,
sorry, I can't go." But anyway, so that's it for the Eagles. Let's dive into Colorado collegiate hockey, which has also begun, and we haven't covered any of the games thus far because, again, I was preoccupied with other stuff. But yeah, October 8th and 9th was the opening weekend for the Denver Pioneers, Colorado College Tigers, and the Air Force Falcons. So let's get started with DU. They had their home opener on October 8th and 9th. Home opening weekend, we'll call it. 8-3 and 4-3 victories over Arizona State, making a big statement in that first game with a five goal differential in an 8-3 victory. They also defeated Air Force 4-1. Maybe a foregone conclusion, unfortunately, on October 15th. And then, here's a big one, 8-0 the next night against Air Force. Holy crow, Falcons. Oh, yeah, just completely shitting the bed against the Denver Pioneers.
The best way to put that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Best way to put that. They head to the Northeast to play Providence and Boston College, both ranked teams. So October 22nd, 4-1 lead going into the third period, Denver had. They lose the game 6-5. They blow a 3-goal lead heading into the third period and allow a 5-goal third period against the Providence Friars. And poor Magnus Krona. I'm not sure if that was a goalie thing or if it was a defense thing, but oof.
It was something. That's what it was. There's no excuse for that. You can't pin that on anybody. It's usually a team thing, at that point.
Sure.
So that's tough.
Epic collapse when the wheels fall off like that, for sure. They played number 10 ranked Boston College the night after. 5-1 defeat at the hands of the Golden Eagles. You got to imagine they were a little deflated, probably a lot of deflated after losing to the Friars as poor in such poor fashion as they did.
And confidence is everything, regardless of what league you're playing in. It gets in your head for sure.
Big momentum. Once you get rolling, man, sometimes you can't stop that boulder. You're just going to get run over if you step in front of it. So I guess that's what happened. And then, they lost 5-1 against the Golden Eagles there. Interdivisional play for the Denver Pioneers starts on Friday, November 5th. So not this coming weekend, but the weekend after that, they head to Grand Forks against UND, the University of North Dakota. Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a tough matchup. Always is, especially in Grand Forks. Jeez.
Oh, yeah. That barn is, it's
nicer than some NHL rinks. It's actually it's an incredible rink.
There's a lot of money that has gone.
Rightfully so. The fans love going. So it's just a raucous environment every time, and it's almost impossible to win there. So always interested to watch that one and see how they do. And it's a big statement game. If they can pull out even just one, obviously both would be huge. But I think that's it's so early on in the season to get that confidence that you can beat. Because they're probably going to finish number one again. So if you could beat that number one team in their barn, both games, that in your mind at that point, again, going back to the confidence thing, it's we're the number one team. We can beat them. We did it. Come playoff time, whatever. We got this.
speaking of statement games, let's talk Colorado College because they had a statement game in the past few games that they've played. But Denver, their overall record, obviously, like I said, interdivisional play hasn't started yet, but Denver's overall record is 4-2-0. So now we can head to Colorado College. So Colorado College, they opened up Ed Robson Arena, the shiny new stadium that they've got. 2 games against St. Lawrence on the 8th and the 9th. First game was a 1-2 loss. Sorry, 2-1 loss. I was reading that backwards. Second game, a 1-1 tie. Hey, you remember ties? They still do it at the college level.
How fun.
Yeah. Yep. So 1-1 tie. And then they traveled to Schenectady, New York. I wanted to say that much more fluidly.
Yeah, no, I can't help you out on that one. That's
Schenectady. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing it wrong, New York natives, but they faced Unit College up there October 15th and 16th. First game, little deja vu, 2-1 loss. Second game, another tie, 3-3 this time after Colorado College putting together a 3-goal second period, no goals from either team in the third or overtime periods. So it begs you the question, okay, when are they going to finish a game? You have 2 1-goal games. You have 2 games that you finish with a tie. When are they going to put together a game and get that elusive first victory? It was against Boston College. The ranked Boston College team, one of many upsets in collegiate hockey that weekend. Number 10 ranked Boston College by a score of 5-3 in Chestnut Park, Massachusetts, at Boston College's home barn. 5 goals, 5 different guys. Colorado College really putting together a team effort to get that first victory against a ranked opponent. You want to talk about a confidence builder? That'll do it for you. Goalie, Tigers goaltender Dominic Bassi, 40 saves for the Tigers in that victory. Very impressive. Very impressive. And then the next game, number 20 Northeastern, 1-0 defeat. Really close. Again, another 1-goal effort, another 1-goal defeat. And Jack Hughes, the lone goal scorer. Not that Jack Hughes. Different Jack Hughes.
Yeah, he's in a much bigger league these days.
Yes. Not New York Devils prospect Jack Hughes, but a different Jack Hughes, who's also kind of a highly touted prospect at the NHL level. You know, we're talking top 20, top 30, top 40 prospects heading into the 2022 draft. So you got another Jack Hughes. We're going to have a Sebastian Aho confusion again. You've got the Carolina Sebastian Aho, and then you've got the New York Islanders Sebastian Aho. Same spelling and everything. Not confusing at all. No.
Hate it.
So anyway, last but not least, we'll finish up with Air Force. They started the season off good with a 3-2 victory over Michigan State in East Lansing. Not too shabby. Michigan State's nothing to shake a stick at. That was October 8th. And then it's been rough. October 9th, 5-1 loss against Michigan State. October 15th and 16th, we mentioned it earlier, against the Denver Pios, 4-1 loss, 8-0 lost. And then randomly, in the middle of their regular season, they have a couple of exhibition games against D2 Lindenwood on October 23rd and 24th. 6-1 victory, 7-3 victory. I guess that's going to happen when you play a D2 team when you're a D1 club. But yeah, those were exhibition games because I guess the D2 hockey hasn't started up yet. But Lindenwood, random side note, becoming a D1 team in 2022-23. I found that in my research today. So good for Lindenwood.
It's no easy feat. Yeah.
No, definitely not. You can talk to Arizona State about that for sure. So yes, next games for both Air Force and Colorado College are against each other this coming weekend on the 29th and the 30th. So there you have it. That is our Colorado collegiate hockey rundown. And I feel, Scott, like that's what differentiates us between the other Colorado hockey podcasts. We talk Avalanche, some of the other podcasts talk Eagles, but we want to cover the collegiate ranks as well. And we're confessed that we're not boots on the ground. I mean, you were a couple seasons ago. You did cover Denver.
Yeah, now I'm so spread thin. Like, I mean, that was like one of the first credentials I had. I was like, just lucky to, a junior reporter or whatever, just stoked to be in a press box. But yeah, I mean, especially like their games are always on Friday and Saturday nights, which are, kind of prime time, like NHL games. And of course, the Eagles are generally playing Friday and Saturday night. So like it's just tough to, to get on that. And, I'm not big on listening to like the radio station either. For a game, I think it's more of a visual game.
Sure.
So Yeah, I don't really, cover much DU Pioneers these days or any, college hockey, but I'll follow closely. I got their tweet notifications on, see how they're doing, and that's about all I can report on it.
Well, and again, Scott, I know we mentioned it last episode, but the Colorado College and Air Force, we really need to. You mentioned you never been to an Air Force game, you never been to a Colorado College game,
Yeah,
so we need to get our press credential on and make it kind of an event and to say, hey, here we are, Ed Robson Arena, shiny new barn for Colorado College. Like I said, just seeing the pictures of the inside of it, it looks like a
it
revamped,
looks beautiful.
you know, it looks beautiful. It just looks like a revamped old Broadmoor Arena. Like it reminds me of just that intimate, college hockey venue and not this cavernous 10,000 seat arena that you had at the new Broadmoor World Arena, which is more of a concert venue than anything.
Right.
Random side note, I can't remember if I mentioned this or not, but I have seen a couple concerts at the new Broadmoor World Arena when I was a kid. I
Oh, wow.
saw Steve Miller Band and George Thorogood, and then I also
Okay.
saw Joan Jett and the Heartbreakers, or
Wow.
Not the Heartbreakers, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. Heartbreakers are Tom Petty's crew,
Yeah.
but I saw Joan Jett and the Blackhearts and Def Leppard there as well.
Ooh,
So that was
big Def
definitely.
Leppard guy.
Are you
Yeah. I mean, I
okay?
definitely like it used to be. Like, it's not, on my Spotify rotation these days, but yeah, no, I was like super into it. Like, when me and my mom used to road trip between visiting my grandparents in like South Carolina and Florida. We
Okay.
we went through a phase where we blasted, yeah, Def Leppard like the entire 16-hour drive, whatever it was. Like, it was good. I was into him. Yeah,
Right on. No, I know your mom's a big 80s rock fan,
yeah,
big Prince proponent. I know,
of course. Me as
definitely
well.
not
Yeah,
shy about that. I mean, who isn't? I mean,
right.
you gotta have earplugs in if if you gotta be completely out of the loop if you're not a Prince fan, because the man, he can shred the guitar like nobody's business. He can craft a pop song up there with the best of them. I mean, is 1984 probably one of the best albums of all time, top to bottom? I would say so. But but I digress. We're getting off on a musical tangent
Right.
here, and it's all my fault. So forgive me for that.
That's all right.
But hey, it's time for our favorite portion of the program, and that is asking the feed. And we get to hear from the fans on Twitter. Scott, very diligently, 3 p.m. Mountain, every time, every day we
Scheduling that
record,
tweet, baby.
scheduling that tweet, putting it
It's
out
gotta be.
there. Yeah. And so let's hear from the fans. And of course, first and foremost, no big surprise here. Oftentimes asking questions on the program at TJ Tracy 92. It's Teddy, it's TJ. And let's talk about their question. How do you think Newey's doing, all things considered? Is it time to bring him back up? And Newey, of course, talking about Alex Newhook. And, Scott, as we mentioned before on the program, it's not something that we expected Alex Newhook to play for the Colorado Avalanche last season. So maybe a little more seasoning down in Loveland or up in
Yeah,
Loveland, if we're talking geographically correct here. But
right.
yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like we were not expecting him to make his debut last year, and then in the NHL ended up doing it, and then like the beginning of this year, like he was expected to push for that top six role, that
Right.
that wing position that was left open by Brandon Saad. And I asked Coach Bednar that question, heading into the training camp. I was like, I mean, is this a guy you think, like, he's young, not proven, but do you think this is a guy that can push for top six spot? And he's like, I hope so. Like, that's gonna be, we're gonna put him in a bunch of situations with like those guys, and I hope he sticks. And I think we are all a little bit shocked that he played like one game, and got sent down, and apparently had a long conversation with Joe Sakic and Coach Bednar, and kind of just talked about how they needed to see more from him, and he was a little bit disappointing. And that's okay, because like I said, they kind of rushed him into it last year, but a little bit of seasoning and humbling, I think, is super important, like this early in your career. Because to play like what 6-7 games in the AHL and then get a call up to the NHL, play in the Stanley Cup playoffs, like you're like, I'm the shit, right? Like, I think I've made it. I don't have to work like any harder than the next person. So I think this is a good kind of slap in the face for him with of reality, and I think it's only going to do him good. The Eagles are a great organization, and I think he'll certainly learn some discipline from Greg Cronin and that staff down there, and I think it's not a bad thing. But as far as he's how he's doing, statistically, like he's getting a lot of minutes. As we said earlier in our conversation, like he's always going to he's their top forward, right? So he's always going to get 20 minutes a night, and that's good. He needs that seasoning. The Avalanche need him as soon as possible, obviously. But he's firing a lot of shots on net. Like I think I just saw that between like the last 2 games and San Jose, like 14 shots, combined in those 2 games. Wow. 7 in the most recent, like 6 in the others, 13 shots, whatever. Yeah, no, it's he's trying to bring it, So I imagine when I see that, like, he's at least getting in the gritty areas, and he's not afraid to fire the puck on net, which is really what the Avalanche want him to do. So I think he needs to maybe beef up a little bit and play a little more physically, which I saw he got in a bit of a scrap a couple games ago, which is good to see. I don't know if he got credited for a fight or not, but I saw some pictures from one of our photogs down there that he was mucking it up, and helmet was off, and that's what you want to see. It's like you want to see a little bit of attitude and a little bit of chip on your shoulder, and fight back. Like he's not a huge guy; he's like 5'10", and you're going to get pushed around in the NHL if you're not, careful. So he obviously has the speed and the offensive talent, but I think what they want from him is, the ability to go grab pucks in the corner and battle and fight, alongside the boards. And I think that's where he needs the most help. Which again, I think that's what they learn, with Greg Cronin. Like he's a very defensively responsible, defense first kind of guy, and puck management. And so is Coach Bednar. So I think he's going to learn a lot of that, and I expect him to play a few more games with the Eagles, and then get a call up, see how he does, and we'll go from there.
In the meantime, I mean, he's got a goal and an assist in 3 games played. So I mean, when you're contributing off the bat like that, and you're surrounding yourself with AHL veterans like Dylan Sekura, Gabe Fontaine, and Kiefer Sherwood, I mean, there's worse guys to play with at that level for sure. I mean, and to kind of glean from them and to get encouraged by them, that's not a bad thing either. So building a little confidence up in Loveland for sure.
Yeah.
Next question. Oh, thank you, TJ. Thank you for the question. Always appreciate it. Always want to be grateful. Always want to show gratitude. Didn't want to move on before doing that. So next, of course, it's Fred J at Durf Zuki himself, Durf McGurf. AHL question. How are Barron and Newhook doing? Of course.
So already answered half that.
Right. NHL question. Are you surprised that Bednar hasn't tried McDermott on the wing yet?
He needs to try him on the wing of the bench. Far side of the bench is what they need to do.
I think so. The wing of Ball Arena, like
right.
Different wing of Ball
Arena.
The
east wing of the press box upstairs.
There you go.
No, so I mean, I think he has played a little bit of off the fence. Like they've been kind of using him interchangeably. He might have played offense. He was playing D last night, but I think they try to use him, interchangeably throughout games, which is only confusing for everybody involved. And McDermott, I'm sure too. You don't know what your role is, and maybe that's a contributing factor to why his performance has been very subpar. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely, a defensive liability. I'd trust him more at forward. I think he'd be, a decent 4th line forward and go check. I don't know why he's playing defense. I think that's why they brought him on. Yes, I think technically he is a defenseman, but, I think he was brought on for, that 4th line forward depth. And I think that's where he needs to stay. Absolutely stop with the, the defense pairing with Ryan Murray. That's been a liability, and it's been proven night in and night out. So I guess, to answer your question, like, I mean, he has kind of tried him, but I'm surprised they're not keeping him there. And I'm even more surprised that he's still in the lineup at all. So.
And in regards to Justin Barron, again, we talked about Alex Newhook having a goal and an assist. Justin Barron also has a goal and an assist. And I believe that they are pairing Barron with Keaton Middleton. So Rob Hamilton, I don't think has been playing. He might be having an injury. Durf Zuki says, agreed. Lol. So in regards to McDermott, but
benching him probably.
What's that?
I said benching him probably is what he's.
Oh, yes, probably. Yeah. But no, Barron, I mean, he's a top pairing guy. He's a top pairing guy for the Eagles. And to put him with a veteran like Middleton is a good thing. I mean, Middleton's familiar with the system and everything, especially, when you've only got, Middleton, Gilbert, and Barron are the three guys that are on your roster from last season. To put Barrington with a Middleton, I don't think is a bad thing. So yeah, it can only help him grow, and it can only maybe give him a chance with the Avalanche, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. An injury occurs.
So excited to see what he was one of those picks that I thought he was, a lot longer off than he was. But I mean, he's played, just a handful of games in the AHL and impressed me quite a bit, in his limited time in preseason and training camp. And he looks just so confident with the puck. And I kind of drew this comparison, well, people were asking me Scott, is he better than, a Connor Timmins? It's I mean, absolutely. You put those two guys, stature wise, maybe they're the same, their dimensions are the same, whatever. And Connor Timmins is a second round pick that was kind of billed as this future first line, defenseman or first pairing defenseman. And, he can bring it offensively and is also responsible defensively. It just never translated. And obviously I don't think the Avalanche gave him enough time, but it's, there's a lot of depth, and, if you don't win your spot in a season, then, it's time to go. We got to, use you for some assets and give, the next man up a shot. And that's what they did. But, you look at those guys side by side, and it's Barron just has confidence. And that was my biggest flaw. My biggest issue with, Connor Timmins was he just clearly lacked that confidence, at all times. It just seemed whenever the puck got to him, he wasn't willing to hold on to it. It was just okay, up the boards. And it was usually not, didn't clear it. It was kind of just a panic play every time Connor Timmins touched the puck. But Justin Barron's that guy. It's he's taking it up the ice. He's doing behind the back passes and stuff that you would see, the Cale Makars of the league do, or some of these, the Miro Haskinens, in Dallas, doing spin moves and stuff. It's you're playing, you're one of your first NHL games. Yes, it's preseason, but you're already pulling this stuff against big boys. And that was just wow, this guy's, maybe further ahead than I thought. And, he almost he was the last one cut from camp. I thought he might have actually surprised everyone and made the team, but he, that just goes to show. And anytime you are the last cut, you're pretty much the next man up. That's what they're saying.
Yeah,
you were this close. We're ready for you, which is why, again, I'm a little upset McDermott is in, and Coach Bernard says this is the best we have to work with. I don't know. At this point, I'm willing to give, Justin Barron a few games and, not burn his ELC, but to see what he can do. He could be a huge revelation for him and, make it to the NHL sooner than they thought. So I'm excited to see, long-term what he does, at the AHL level or NHL level, but I really don't expect him to be, in the AHL for much longer. And I'm sure we'll see him, get a few games of the Avalanche this year for sure.
He's got that confidence. That's a great word for it, because he's not afraid to bring that puck into the zone. He's not afraid to push up the ice through the neutral zone and into the offensive zone. He isn't, he's a jack of all trades, and when it comes to his defense as well. He's not just a one-dimensional defender, and he's a two-way defenseman. He can play the offensive game as well. And again, not a big surprise that he has a goal and an assist just in 4 games with the Eagles thus far. So for him to be contributing on the score sheet, as well as, try and contribute as a defensive pairing with Keaton Middleton, he's just doing, it's like you said, last person cut from camp. It's just a matter of time, unfortunate circumstances, injuries or something like that, before you get that call up and go for the big club, go for the parent club up there in the Avalanche. So Thank you, Durf. Thanks for the question. Another regular contributor to the program. And last but not least is yet another regular contributor to the program. It's great to have fans. It's nice to have people that regularly pop into the group chat while we're streaming live on YouTube and pop in on Twitter to, answer the bell, answer the call, and ask us these questions. Last but not least, of course, is Gil Manklang at Gil_Manklang. And he has meats. Gil has the meats. At least the meats question for us. And he is asking us to rank these smoked meats: pulled pork, brisket, ribs, and wings. He finished that up saying, next time the Nuggets come to Memphis, y'all come so we can discuss my horrible taste in Will Ferrell movies and have great barbecue. And
I love that tip of the hat to our. I think it was our last podcast. We were making fun of him. He asked us a question to rank, a handful of Will Ferrell movies. Similar to this question, he asked us to rank these meats, but we were kind of poking fun at him that he picked, some mediocre, ones. I know he's probably listening right now, so hi Gil, but we forgive you. We'll absolutely take you up on that offer. By the way, I would love to watch the Nuggets and eat some barbecue with you.
We'll have to see when they play the Grizzlies out there in Memphis. So
yeah, never been to Tennessee. So
front range hockey becomes Tennessee basketball.
Yeah,
I don't
basketball
know.
podcast. Why not?
Memphis, Tennessee would become a basketball podcast for an episode. For free barbecue, I'll do anything.
We could try it.
Yeah, might be fun. Anyway, Scott, I yield the floor to you, my good sir. What out of those 4, what would you rank them?
I'm pretty confident in this one. So, I mean, first and foremost, like my go-to barbecue order is like I'm getting brisket every time. So that's got to be my number 1. Pulled pork is probably my number 2. Honestly, not a huge ribs guy. I don't know what it is. I love them obviously, but like as far as ranking these and like if I had the choice between like, 2 meats, which is like usually how barbecue places work, right? Like, you pick a meat or a couple meats and like you pick your sides. Like I could never pass up brisket and pulled pork and then, pick my sides too, which is that'd be another good question about like, what are the best barbecue sides, but we'll get to that another time. So I would say brisket, then pulled pork, then I'm going ribs and then wings. I'm a pretty traditional wing guy. I'm not like huge on smoked wings. I like just the classic buffalo, fried wings that you get, at a sports bar. That's kind of my go-to. I don't really need the smoked flavor on those. I don't really like smoked chicken anyway. I think beef is meant to be smoked. Chicken you can cook other ways. That's just that's my opinion on that. But
fair.
So that's an easy number 4 for me. I'll still eat it either way. Like I don't hate any of these. I want you guys to understand that.
No,
but yeah, it's like I give preferential treatment to other meats, and brisket's definitely my number 1.
That's a solid list, my friend, and I am going to turn it on its head from your picks because
the exact opposite of me.
Well, not exact opposite, but my father. I grew up with my dad. He smoked the best ribs. The man smoked the best ribs. I remember visiting him in North Dakota one time. And he especially made ribs because I was there, and he vacuum sealed them so I could take a rack of ribs home with me. Beautiful. The man took care of me. But number 1 with a bullet is Craig Hawkley's smoked ribs. And just as an homage to my father, who hasn't been with us for about 5 years, almost 6 years now. But Craig Hawkley's smoked ribs is at the top of my list all time. In regards to smoked meats. And second, I would say brisket. Beef brisket. Oh, if it's done right, it's done right. There's something about beef that, but pulled pork, close third. All of these are like really close. Like it's not a runaway. It's like a 1A,
1B, 1C, 1D kind of thing.
Exactly.
Like there really is
exactly what it is.
No fair ranking.
Right. So I'll go brisket 2, pulled pork 3, wings. I've only had smoked wings once, and it was actually our mechanic here up in Thornton. Good friends with him actually, and he invited us over for his Super Bowl party. He goes, you got to try these smoked wings, and they were really good. They were really damn good. I was super surprised because, like you said, when you think smoked meats, you don't necessarily think chicken. But I want to say Mark and his smoked wings made me a believer. Again, 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D. Those are my mates. You got barbecue ribs. Gil's, what's that?
I was gonna say Gil's chirping us in the comments right now.
Oh no!
He said blasphemy from Scott. Memphis is a pork barbecue town. You need to try some dry rub ribs, pork nachos, smoked wings, and barbecue spaghetti. You'll never eat brisket again.
Ooh. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's like I haven't had Memphis barbecue. Like I'm a Carolina barbecue guy, or like my dad's from Texas. So again, it's all beef. It's a pretty beef dominant, state Texas is. So that's just what I grew up eating, and that's what I enjoy. But I'd love to try it. I haven't had so much exposure to pork. I have had pork nachos. I'm a big nacho guy. Whatever meat you throw on it, I love it. I'm very interested to see what barbecue spaghetti is. Never heard of that.
Me neither.
So Okay. Oh yeah, we'll have to give that a shot if we make it down there. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we're gonna have to book our Frontier flights down to Memphis here pretty
right.
soon. We're coming full circle now. We started off with Frontier, we're ending with Frontier. It's the completion of the whole thing. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. But no, thank you, Gil, for that question. Always bringing us the fun questions, the non-hockey related questions that you get to pick at the minds of Scott and Cece a little bit. So, yeah. Now I'm hungry for some meats.
I know, right?
I
It's
haven't
dinner
had
time.
dinner yet, so it is
Yeah,
dinner time
same.
for sure.
Yeah.
We definitely put the podcast before a meal here, so it's time to eat. But hey, Scott, that'll do it for episode number 28. So, let me start by saying, hey, thanks for tuning in to Front Range Hockey. Don't forget to follow our show on pretty well any major podcast platform. We're talking Google, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify. If you can name it, you can think of it. Spreaker, that's the main site that I upload the audio file to, so you can check that out. And hey, as you see right now, you can watch us on YouTube. So if you haven't given our Twitter account a follow, as you can see scrolling below on the video, if you can't see it, it's at Front RNG Hockey on the Twitters. So with all that said, Scott, you mentioned it earlier, but I always want to give you a chance to finish up with where the people can find your work.
Well, you can find me on Twitter damn near every day. I've been a little bit quieter actually lately, but I'll be picking that up soon. But anyway, you can find me on Twitter. I talk a lot on there. It's at off Scott Free. It's at 0FF Scott Free. At off Scott Free was taken, so I had to come up with something else on that one. But you can find my written work, more detailed analysis kind of stuff in columns, hot takes or Scott takes as I call them, on our site, coloradohockeynow.com. Posting there a couple times a week too. And again, as the season starts ramping up and storylines unfold, I'll be posting there frequently. So come join me.
And of course, I'm CC Hawkley, the AHL editor of Full Press Hockey and Colorado Eagles correspondent over there as well. And you can find my written work over there at Full Press Hockey. That's www.fullpresshockey.com. And you can check out this and a ton of other great hockey podcasts, plus other great sports pods over at Full Press Radio Network at www.fullpresscoverage.com. And that'll do it. For Scott McDonald, I'm CC Hawkley, and this has been, again, episode number 28 of Front Range Hockey. We appreciate y'all for tuning in, all you guys, gals, and non-binary pals out there. And we're gonna
catch you later.
We'll catch you later. Steak. I'm Ron Burgundy. Speaking of Will Ferrell, right. But yeah, no, stay colorful, my friends, as we bow out here from colorful Colorado. So have a good night, y'all. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.